I want to talk about the word bloke. I often talk about this in terms of names for businesses. One of the most famous names ever is Virgin, and if you do some examination of it, it doesn't really matter whether people like the name or not, and to some extent controversy is good, but as long as I remember it. So it's a name that's memorable, Virgin.
Really?
Bloke is a smart name. It's just a brilliant name, particularly when you associate with beer. And then the footy guys, and by the way, probably the footy girls too, they get it. It can sort of become cultish.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, what it looks like to me, you've turned this to a cultish thing.
Yeah, I like to say community.
Yeah, community is a nice way of saying it. It's a positive way, but it's not a bad cult, but it is a cult.
Yeah, it's
cultish.
I took a lot of inspiration, and I know this is such a cliche answer, but from Apple. So the way Apple works is basically it's a computer company that makes phones, but you don't think about that. You see Apple, and it exists externally from a product.
Yeah.
And that's the way with Bloke in a Bar. Yes, we are a beer, but we also sell merchandise, and the merchandise flies off the shit. Like, we sell thousands of shirts. Got your jumper.
Funnily enough, there we go. Bloke. I love it. Bloke. I'll be wearing that later.
Nice.
Good colours too.
Yeah, that's the whole feel of it. So when we did the design and the branding I took in pictures from the 1990s of footy and 1980s, and the whole feel is like a throwback to when blokes were blokes and it was okay to be a bloke, and not the negative side of it, but the positive side of being a bloke. About honesty, integrity, and being there for your mates.
By the way, do you think it's still okay to be a bloke, or do you think it's do we have to worry about that shit? I'm old enough not to worry about it. I'm also old enough to remember when a bloke was a bloke. Or do we have to be, everything and really conscious of all those other things? Do we have to give in to pressure?
Look, I think I'll pass this from my partner's perspective, my wife. She says to me that, she wants more blokes. She's dated guys that were not necessarily very blokey or strong or, decisive and, honesty and all the stuff that gets conflated with negative masculinity. A lot of women, in my opinion, again, I'm not speaking for them, actually like that yin and yang environment of like, that's a bloke, he's strong, he's disciplined, he, blokey things. So I think there has been a kind of a conflation of there's two sides of masculinity. There's the dumb side where blokes do stupid shit. They fight each other. There are negative sides, absolutely. But there is also a lot of positivity that blokes bring. And I think that's what the brand tries to shine a light on. It's like, not the negative stuff. That's anyone can be a dickhead, whether it's a female or male. It's the positive side of masculinity, mateship, camaraderie, working together, all of that stuff. And it has really resonated. So, look, I do think there has been a push against the bloke, but I also believe that if you're a real bloke, you don't listen to that. You stick to your principles and you do as your father or the male figure in your life showed you in a positive light, in my opinion.
So, because I guess we're getting a bit deep here, but I actually want to go there. Not too many people in business. A lot of people in business would be worried about promoting the word bloke. You're not, because you're saying I'm just promoting the positive side of it. I'm not worried about the negative side of it. You guys think what you like, but I'm promoting the positiveness of a bloke. And by the way, if that only appeals to 50% of the population, that's pretty fucking good.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
That's a big part of the population. But it's a brave thing to be able to shine a spotlight on a word called bloke, which has all sorts of connotations to all sorts of people. But at the end of the day, not everyone's going to be a customer.
No.
And I think there's too much emphasis today trying to please everyone in the world. Like, oh shit, because when you do that, you become paralyzed. You don't please anyone because you don't do anything. You don't do anything.
Absolutely.
You end up calling it, I don't know what you call it. You call it some other name. It might be, XYZ, because you sanitize the process so much and you analyze it so much, it becomes paralytic.
Yep.
It's dumb for me. And I quite like the fact that you're prepared to stand up. You got the guts to say, look, I like the positive attributes of what are traditionally considered a bloke, at least in this country. I'm going to call my business Bloke in a Bar, or my beer Bloke in a Bar, and maybe one day it becomes Bloke. and I'm proud enough to stand up and promote that. I mean, there's not many people around like that. And I think that actually wins you prizes. I think that wins admiration. And I think that actually adds to the brand. And if what you're saying is going to shine a light on those things that represent a bloke, there's nothing wrong with that either.
No,
and maybe every single person you get in has a different attribute who comes into your show. They have different attributes. And as long as they're good quality, positive attributes that add to society and community and to all their family, then what the fuck? I mean, what's wrong with that?
Absolutely, and that's where I'm extremely confident we will have a positive impact on blokes. I'm extremely confident saying if you want your son or your partner or whatever to emulate the traits I'm trying to promote, I think they are good traits for men to have, and I think that they will make the world a better place. So it's not this or that or blokes are good or bad and women are good or bad. It's a set of principles that I feel that a lot of blokes, it's kind of been, the water's been muddied as to, what it is to, I mean, these days, if you said to a 16, 17-year-old male, what is it to be a bloke? A lot of young men wouldn't know, and I do think there is a whole generation of young men that are struggling to find identity. When I grew up, my father, he helped disadvantaged kids, but he taught me so much about honesty, integrity, standing by your mates, all the good stuff. He didn't teach me, go out and bash some bloke and, drive cars fast and do dangerous things. Like, yes, that is a negative thing that a lot of men fall victim to, especially the 18 to 25-year-old, full of testosterone and just do stupid shit. Like, for thousands of years, they'd go away to war and get rid of all of that shit. Whereas we don't really have that anymore. So
they create their own wars.
Exactly. And so if we can somehow, long term, create an environment where young men can go, that isn't the way to go, this whole carrying on like a dickhead and thinking you're tougher than the next bloke and blah, blah, blah. And we go, this is actually what a bloke is. It's about being sturdy, respectful, disciplined. Look at mixed martial arts, in my opinion, is such a perfect example of like, you can learn so much as a bloke from that. You can learn, it's not about being tougher, it's about discipline, it's about respecting your opponent or your teammate. It's about understanding that there's always a bigger, badder wolf than you, so don't carry on like you're a hero. All of that stuff. That's what I'm trying to promote. So the larrikin side is fun, and there is some good things about being have a few beers, have a bit of a laugh, but not the negative nonsense of like dickhead. Just a dickhead. Everyone knows what a dickhead is, whether female or male. Just a dickhead that's carrying on. We have plans eventually to have nights in pubs where it's just a bloke night. You come down, you have a beer, you just talk any issue you got. It's not too serious in the sense of a really sterile environment. It's at a pub over a beer, and you just talk to your mates about whatever it is. We definitely have plans to go down that route eventually and try to positively impact men and young men. I mean, I think male suicide has actually increased recently over the last
we're one of the worst in the world.
It's one of the worst in the world, and I think that it's going to take other men to help men not do that. And that is the end goal. Obviously, we've got a long way to... We've got all other moving pieces to get there. But the end goal, it starts with rugby league and trying to help the rugby league community. Then it extends to the sporting community. And then I hope eventually that, Bloke as a brand can be seen as a positive impact to masculinity in Australia, not a negative one. Positive impact to just society, really.
But it's also okay to be masculine.
Absolutely.
You don't, by being masculine, you're not denigrating females.
If anything, you're raising it up, in my opinion. You're raising up the femininity and praising it and giving it if they need a platform, giving it a platform to be the best it can be. That's what I feel that a man should always do is put his family, whether it be his kids or his wife, in the best position they can be in if they want that help. If they don't want that help, that's fine too. That's, in my opinion, that's what...
It's quite an interesting... it's quite interesting. Like, we're talking to someone here who's got a podcast that talks to footy players, who's got a beer brand, and all of a sudden now we're talking about standards of virtues for young men. That's a big leap, but it's quite admirable from my point of view, and I think it actually adds to your brand.
Yeah.
Your objectives and your purpose. I mean, that's really your purpose. It seems to be your purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's probably one of the reasons why it's so successful. It's probably the reason why it's not a big ask for you to get influential rugby league players to come and say something about your beer.
Yep.
Because I guess they get it. I mean, they might not get it specifically, but they just get it. They say, well, hey, I want to talk to this guy. I feel right, and it's okay for me to speak the way about what I feel.
Yep.
And it's actually okay for me to speak about topics that ordinarily I wouldn't want to talk about around my teammates. And ordinarily, like as a society, sometimes we feel embarrassed to talk about masculinity.
Absolutely.
It's like you're going to get hammered.
Absolutely.
You can't. And by the way, just sitting here with a beer, that's sometimes associated with larrikinism, but actually, well, for me, to be honest with you, why I'm happy to have a beer now, I'm celebrating something that I'm really happy with that you're saying. I'm actually celebrating that we can be a bloke,
Yep.
but at the same time, by being a bloke, it doesn't mean I'm disrespectful to anyone else.
No way.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That's
Absolutely.
really brilliant.
Absolutely.